Get me that signal. We need more power.
All right, troops. Listen, and listen good. I know you don't have any ears. I'm watching you, soldier. Here's the deal. The same virus that made us plants smart has also released a wave of zombies all over the world. They're coming, and it's our job to stop them. You might ask why it's up to us to stop this wave of death. After all, they don't eat plants. They eat humans, and more specifically, human brains.
Brains.
Incoming! Nice work. Good response time. As I was saying, why should we deploy ourselves in the front yards all over the world, protecting the humans from their own deadly mistakes? To protect our children. Yes, the humans carry our pollen in their clothes and all over their bodies from yard to yard across the globe. Why, Millie, the owner of this very house, is carrying over 10,000 of my kids with her right now. It's my hope that Millie gets the same chance to visit with the mailman, the pool boy, the pizza delivery guy, and neighbor Bob that she usually does, so that my kids might get a chance to find their mother. And that's all a dad can ask for. Let's get 'em!
Let's take a quick look at Plants vs. Zombies Risk. First off, the components. We've got the figures here. Here's the plants. This represents 3 plants. And this represents 1 plant. And we've got zombies. Here's 3 zombies. And then 1 zombie. Here's the board. As you can see, it's much more tightly packed than regular Risk, and that's because it's for only 2 players. You've got... It reminds me a lot of Small World, actually, because you're pretty squished together. There's only room for the 1 player on one side, 1 player on that side, and then you've got these garden gnomes in the middle who are like the cannon fodder. You kind of wipe them out as you go through the game. The object of the game is to either 1, completely wipe out your opponent, or 2, complete 3 objectives. And the game has these objective tokens, like for example this one is control the town dump. So if at any point you control, and right here is the town dump. If you see, the picture matches the icon in Breakwind Butt. Butte, sorry. So if you complete an objective, you get to take one of these objectives at the end of your turn, and if you ever get 3 of these, you win the game. So it makes for a much shorter game. Plus, since it's so much tighter, the game goes really fast. I mean, I've finished them in a half hour, or even less. They're divided into territories and big sections. So like this is the low headland section. It's the red ones over here. Each individual one is a territory. If you notice, some of them have white. That's fog, and it affects combat. The maximum dice you can use when attacking into a fog area is 2, whereas normally it's 3, depending on the number of figures. You've also got these little station wagon tokens, which make a difference, like objective-wise, by controlling a certain amount of territories with station wagons in them, which are randomly placed at the beginning of the game. There's 2 ways to play this version of the game. There's 3 altogether, but in this version you've got 2 basic training scenarios, and it gives you the setup of how to play, how to put your troops together. This is basic setup 1, and then there is a basic setup 2. All it really does is put plants on one side, gnomes on the other, and a bunch of zombies on the other, and a bunch of gnomes in the middle. that you can practice wiping out as you head over to wipe out your opponent. We've also each got these decks of risk cards. There's one for plants and one for zombies. What they'll do is you can use them for their special abilities, or they also have money amounts listed on them, either 1 or 2 on each one, and those can be traded in to gain additional troops at the start of your turn. Basically, your turn consists of getting your additional troops. You get 1 for every 3 territories you control, and the minimum is 3, so you're always going to get at least 3. You also get the amount, if you control an entire section, you get that amount listed. So if I control all of the low headlands, I would get 3. If I control all of Pansington Parish, which is in here, I would get 4 additional, and then of course you can trade in to get bonus ones as well. The other thing about on the cards is it's got a special benefit that you can use by playing the card. Play at the start of an invasion. You may re-roll all ones for the duration of the invasion. And it also has each territory listed at the bottom, so that if you need to pick a random territory for something, you just draw a card and it'll give you a territory. The gameplay is just like regular Risk. You've got guys here, you've got guys here, and one is going to invade the other. So they're going to roll a certain amount of dice. He rolls a 5 and a 4. The defenders roll a 4 and a 3. You match up the highest of each. So 5 beats 4, so he loses 1, and 4 beats 3, so he loses another 1. Defender would drop down to 1, and then you can either keep going or you can stop. So the attacker would roll again, and the defender now only gets 1 die. He rolls a 5. That beats that 4, so now he drops to 2. And the attacker can now either stop or keep going. It's up to him. Once he goes down to 1, he has to stop because you can't attack with only 1. Because you can't attack with only 1 troop. That is how you play the Risk side of the board. There's also an advanced game. The only difference within the advanced game is that you get to do the setup yourself. You would take turns putting your troops out on the board rather than having the pre-made setup in here. And it's actually a lot of fun. However, once you go to the other side of the board, you see the standard Plants vs. Zombies setup, and this is what they call the skirmish game. It should look very familiar to you. The zombies will be coming in from this side, and they'll all come in on the sidewalk. The plants get to go anywhere on the board. So each side would start with 30 of each type of troop. So 30 plants and 30 zombies. And during your turn, you get to, first off, you roll 2 dice. 1 die represents how many actions you get, and the other die represents how many troops you get for that turn. And it's up to you which is which. In this case, since I rolled 2 3s, it doesn't make any difference. So I would get 3 troops to place. So take out my 3 plants. I'll put 2 here, and let's say 1 here. You can have up to 3 in each little square. Now you also get actions, and the zombies would work the same way. They would roll their die, and then they would place as many zombies as they can. Zombies, however, get a free action, which is they each move 1 space forward, no matter where they're at on the board. Right after you place all your zombies, all of them move up 1. So you won't have them on the sidewalk for too long. The next phase is the action phase, depending on which player is going. They do have different actions. The zombie player gets to move. So if you got 5 actions, you can choose to move 5 times. Like each move is 1. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If that was all that he wanted to do, that's what he could do. Or if he's up to a group of plants, he can choose to attack, and the attack would work the same way as it does in regular Risk. You just each player rolls the dice, and higher die wins. The plants, they have one unique option which is really nice. They get to make range attacks, so they can attack without causing any, without worrying about getting attacked back if the zombie is more than one square away. So if these guys, they couldn't do a ranged attack, they could only do a ground attack, which is also an option that the plants can do. But this guy, he can do a ranged attack, and since there's one plant there, he can make a ranged attack. He rolls one die. If he rolls a 6, that zombie's dead. Anything else than a 6, well, it doesn't do anything. And you get one die per plant that you control. And each one of those rolls is an action. If the zombies are, the zombie, and you can it really helps for the plants to keep control here, because the plants can't move. They are stuck wherever you place them. However, the zombies are all coming. So that ranged attack really helps. The other thing about this game is you also draw, at the end of your turn, you draw these risk cards still, and you're using them to collect money, basically, because you can purchase these upgrades, which are really nice. Each side has their own upgrades. Like this is the plants upgrade cards, and as you purchase them, they would go in these little spots here to show that you've got them active. For example, the shovel. After deploying, you may move a single plant unit to another space with less than 3 plants. Now, this is the only way that you can move plants around during the game. And this is really, really nice to have. Gatling P. Your ranged attacks now hit on 5s and 6s. This is also a must-have if you're planning on winning. The zombies also have a little deck of upgrade cards that you can buy. You may add 5 destroyed zombie units back into your reserve. So you can in effect have 35 troops rather than 30. Must have for a zombie player. Zombie Yeti, you may add 1 to your highest die roll. This can also make a huge difference. So as you can see, this version is a lot of fun and completely different than regular Risk, except maybe for the die rolling and attacking mechanic. At first I thought it was impossible for the zombies to win because of this ranged attack, but yet my second game, the zombies actually won. Yeah, there's a lot of luck involved because there's a lot of die rolling going on, but they did it. They pulled it off. Anyway, this is how you play Plants vs. Zombies Risk.
It's been a long time since I played any version of Risk at all. I have fond recollections of playing the game in my youth, but I also remembered that it took forever to play, and would sometimes result in hurt feelings if I played with my family. When I hit my teen years and I played with my friends, hurt feelings meant nothing, of course. We were out for blood, and no one took it personally. Unlike Grandma. Many years later, I played Lord of the Rings Risk, and it was a good game, but it was easily outclassed by War of the Ring. At that point, I thought that Risk would forever be a game of my childhood, like Monopoly. The new variants entered the scene, and rule changes designed to give a more modern gaming feel to Risk. My first exposure to this new batch is the whimsical Plants vs. Zombies Risk. This version is unique in that it's designed for 2 players only, and I believe there's only currently one other version of Risk that's only for 2 players. There's lots of fans of the Plants vs. Zombies app from PopCap, and USAopoly was determined to attract some of those fans into the board game. Board game fans could also use the game to draw in non-board gamers, forming a sort of synergy with the publisher in the overall goal to expand the board game hobby to the non-enlightened. This secret strategy can only be successful if in fact the game is fun to play, short enough to keep people interested, and true to the Plants vs. Zombies theme. I believe that USAopoly pulled it off to a certain extent. It's different than any other Risk I've ever played. There's 3 modes of play: beginner, advanced, and the front yard skirmish. The beginner is simply the same as the advanced game, but the location of all the units is predetermined via a setup map in the rulebook. Both beginner and advanced mode remind me a lot more of Small World than of classic Risk. The map is much smaller, with a thin line of neutral tokens between the opposing players, so it isn't long before you're in direct combat with your opponent. This helps to shorten the game considerably. After all, there's only 2 players. Additionally, the objectives shorten the game quite a bit. After a few games, you should be able to play it in well under than an hour, even 30 minutes. You can play a variant where the players must win by gaining total domination, like in classic Risk, if you want, But I like the different strategies that trying to complete 3 objectives to win gives you. The objectives also help to keep both players in the game, even when one player seems to be running away with it. Because anyone can make a push to complete an objective if the dice rolls are with them. That brings up an important point. This game is mostly up to the luck of the die roll. It's all about attacking, and the dice are either your friend or your bitter enemy. Keep that in mind when considering the game. The third game mode sets it apart and really brings the Plants vs. Zombie theme home. The board is double-sided, and on the back is the classic front yard zombie invasion setup that most people are used to seeing in the game app. Each player has the same amount of troops, but the plants are always on the defense and the zombies are always on the offense. The zombie player need only get a single zombie up to the front porch to win the game, while the plants player must destroy all of the zombies in order to win. You might think that this makes the game harder for the plants player, but that isn't the case at all. For a while I thought that the zombie player had no chance of winning at all for one important reason. The plants player has a ranged attack. Zombies must get to the plants to kill them, but plants can shoot down the entire row they are placed in, and the zombies don't get to attack back. For a few games I thought this was impossible for the zombies to overcome the advantage they have, but in fact I did by luckily defeating a group of plants and then using one of my upgrades to sprint for the finish line. And just like that, the game was over. I thought there was more strategy in this version of the game than the original Risk version on the other side of the board. The big difference is the upgrade cards that you can purchase. The cards you choose can mean the difference between winning and losing. If you play the skirmish game with a younger player, I'd let them play the plants. I still think it's a bigger challenge to play the zombie player, but not impossible. For me, Plants vs. Zombies Risk is worth it for the skirmish side of the board alone. But the two-sided board makes you feel that you're really getting your money's worth out of the game. I recommend this for fans of the app, for fans of Risk, and to a lesser extent for fans of Small World, who want a simpler game to spring on their friends before moving up to Small World. I had a good time playing. Thank you for joining me in this review of Plants vs. Zombies Risk from USAopoly. Let me know if you found this review helpful by leaving a comment or sending me an email at elliot_miller@voiceofe.com. Make sure to subscribe to the Voice of E channel on YouTube, as I'll have a lot more theming game reviews and board game giveaways, and you won't want to miss any of them. Please tell your friends to check out the Voice of E, and hopefully they will subscribe too. Thanks again, and until next time, keep your mind free.
That's it. We need more time.